And welcome back, everybody, to the Market Knowledge Podcast. We're talking to life science CEOs, founders, and influencers. And today we've got another very special guest. CEO and founder of Lynx Bio, Chorom Pak is here. How are you?
Hi, Bob. I'm well. How are you?
Doing great. I really appreciate you being here with me today. Um, we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm super excited about it. But why don't we first start by just let's get right to it and tell us a little bit about yourself and Lynx Bio. I know you're originally or going back a ways a Wisconsin Badger.
Yes, that does seem to come up, and there are a lot more badgers all over the place than you would expect. Well, first, Bob, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here as well. I'll get to the Badger side in a moment. I actually am from Los Angeles, so I am from Southern California, but I did spend 10 years in the Midwest. So it was a pretty large chunk of my life. To start off with, I can briefly introduce Lynx Bio. We are San Diego based, so we're local. We are a immuno-oncology drug discovery company. So we are strong believers in going data first to generate hypotheses for drug discovery. And what we developed is a technology platform that allows us to generate these massive proprietary data sets, which really are these multidimensional maps of the entire ecosystem or the different cellular players that exist for, let's say, different cancers. And this massive data set is what allows us to partner with biopharma to help them with their drug discovery and development efforts, as well as what we've started to do is leverage this technology in-house for our own internal efforts as well. The development of this technology does go back quite a few ways, all the way back to Wisconsin. The very core of the technology is a microfluidic chip that I actually developed as part of my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I've been working on this technology since about 2008. It's been a large part of my life. And the technology has evolved significantly since we first developed it. But our original mission for the technology development has always been the same, which is to build technologies to better understand biology. And that's the same mission that we hold today. So that led me to working closely. I'm a cancer biologist by training. I worked closely with the microfluidics group at the UW to develop this technology. It took 3.5 years to even get the first design. We went through a lot of designs that didn't work. Other folks out there who are in this space will know what I'm talking about. And if you look back, you really wonder why you even tried out that design. But hey, everything is in hindsight, right? The technology wasn't ready to go full time or prime time right after my PhD. So I did a short postdoc, and then I led research and clinical development at a radiotherapeutics company before spinning out Lynx Bio. And shortly after, I relocated the company to San Diego. And we've been here ever since. It was one of the best decisions we ever made.
So when you are spinning out into Lynx Bio, there's probably a decision-making process there on where do you go. You've got the Bay Area, Boston, the clusters of life sciences. What made you decide on San Diego?
Well, it's pretty hard to complain about San Diego, right? But yes, we considered all three major, say, critical biotech hubs that are here in the U.S. And there's new ones that are popping up all over the place. But those were the three that we considered. And to be honest, I actually really like all of those different areas. They have their own different personalities, and we strongly considered each one. We visited each area extensively, got to know the ecosystem that exists there. Uh, we really enjoyed San Diego because of the collaborative atmosphere that exists here. There's very little, I feel, ego and outright cutthroat competition that may exist in other places. And while healthy competition is good, What I've noticed here is that people are just very willing to give you their time. They really want to help you. Let's say even if there's other startups that are in a similar field that may be considered competitors, they still want to work with you. We all just have the same common goal of wanting others to succeed, because if we all succeed, it means that the biotech ecosystem is working and succeeding. And again, it doesn't mean that this doesn't exist in those other areas, but we got into JLab San Diego. We also early on got into another accelerator here in town called EvoNexus. So we just really liked the folks here and got to know them very well. And the entire team was very, uh, I would say, partial to San Diego, and everybody moved with us. There was no argument there about whether or not we're going. So yeah, I had no problem convincing the team to move out here. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
that collaborative atmosphere.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. I find the ecosystem here to be so collaborative and really so welcoming, and I think it's really nice. And of course, you've got the weather too. That's not so bad.
Yes, absolutely. After going through many years of absolutely sweltering, humid summers and extremely cold winters, I'm talking minus 40-degree wind chills, which are just fascinating. The impact that it can have on your physical body, it's fascinating. But I'm okay with not having to dig out my car
Yeah,
and
yeah, I hear
chisel
you.
off ice sheets from your car windows. I'm okay not having to do that anymore.
Well, one of the things that really fascinates me about your story and others in this field, you are a research scientist and you have to make a little bit of a transition, maybe a lot,
Mhm.
into being an entrepreneur. And that means a lot more, sales, marketing, everything. How has that transition been? And did you have a mentor or anybody to kind of help you through that process?
Oh, absolutely. You definitely need mentors. I don't care how seasoned you are, there's going to be somebody more experienced than you that you can always get feedback and advice from. So I have wonderful mentors around me that I've been fortunate to be able to surround myself with. One of the first was actually the head of the microfluidics group that I collaborated with during my PhD. His name is David Beebe, and he's a serial entrepreneur himself. He was extremely entrepreneurial in that regard. He fostered this in his own group at the UW. So many of his students and postdocs also became entrepreneurs. So having that type of I would say, mentor and folks to look up to as examples, that really helped, because honestly, I think this has been changing, but if you go into academia, you start out your graduate career, really the only path forward that is, I would say, encouraged is going into academia, starting your own
Mm.
group, and doing your own research. And it wasn't really encouraged to pursue other paths. So I'm really fortunate to have that. But of course, as you mentioned, it's not just the science, it's sales and marketing, building your business plan, starting to look at fundraising. So all of those were newer to me. So fortunately, I did have a lot of mentors that have gone through this process multiple times and were very successful in their fields that I could bring on as advisors and board directors, who have really helped me out as we grew the company. You can never do things alone. You're kind of kidding yourself if you think you can. And It's been an interesting road. I've really, really enjoyed it because I feel life is only interesting if you're constantly learning. And this has just been one crazy learning lesson after another moving forward. And it's very hard to actually disengage myself from the science because I am a technical founder. But fortunately, I have a really great team of folks who actually can handle that and move that forward with me in that regard. But yes, it is through the benefit of other folks around me. I also didn't spin out the company right away. I did work at a separate biotech that I mentioned that was developing those radiotherapeutics. And while I guess you wouldn't quite call it a startup, it was still small, and small but publicly traded. So it was interesting to see the growth of that company and the lessons that could be learned through that process. So I was able to take a lot of that with me when I spun out LynxBio.
Oh, so you were able to maybe sit back and watch a little bit and kind of
Yeah.
see how it all happens and unfolds.
Absolutely. So it's good to go through those experiences and kind of see the lessons learned by other folks and take them with you when you start your own journey.
Yeah. So on that note, a little bit, you've developed this technology, this process, and it's unique. And now it sounds like you've been going to pharmaceutical companies who have a pipeline and collaborating with them. Which, tell me a little bit more about that. That's almost like a sales process or a this trying to tell people we can do what we say we do here.
Oh yeah, it's an interesting way of putting it. That's honestly that was the first um, thing we had to prove when we started discussing with potential partners. So, we do view them as side by side partners where we're developing things together as opposed to us doing things for them, I suppose. But very early on, when they weren't familiar with the technology, yep, we had to prove that we can do what we say we can do. So
Right.
early on, those collaborations were, I would say, considered validation collaborations because we had to prove exactly that. That some of them didn't believe us because they themselves could not actually generate the type of data that we said we could. And fortunately, we got paid to validate
Yes. Yes.
the
Very
technology
important.
platform. So we're very grateful for those early partners who really believed in us, and some of those have actually continued on forward to now asking interesting biological questions of the data that comes out of our technology. But yeah, we're fortunate that we were honestly able to be paid to validate our own technology. But it's since been validated. We have proven over and over that we can do what we say we can do. So it's now on to the next interesting point, which is what can we do with all of this data? What kind of questions can we ask? How can we leverage it so we can develop better drugs and discover the next generation of therapeutics in this space? So those are really what our collaborations are centered around now, and it's a very, I would say, exciting time for the company. So we're fortunate to have the partners that we do.
What you mentioned J Labs earlier. What was it like being in that kind of an incubator accelerator type of setting?
Oh,
And
it's
what has that
amazing.
meant for you? Yeah.
I I love J Labs. I do feel for the companies that unfortunately came in during the pandemic because the environment unfortunately was just not the same, and it couldn't be the same, right? Because you had to put safety first. Compared to when we joined J Labs, which was fortunately right before the pandemic. It's unparalleled. You get all these other folks around you who are pursuing the same thing, which is starting your own company. You have all the same struggles. You have the same vision of building something that nobody else has ever built before. It's absolutely wonderful. It can be a lonely process to start your own company. You're small at the beginning, and just having
Yeah.
that environment around you of actually just other people to talk to, that's incredibly valuable. And that doesn't even take into consideration the JLab staff who are just so supportive. I just can't believe how much they go up and beyond for their portfolio companies. We're very fortunate to have been here, and we hope that we contributed to that same ecosystem. But yeah, it's J Labs really that was one of the main reasons that we moved here. We just absolutely enjoyed speaking with and being around the people who are in this place.
Well, and you mentioned what an exciting time that it is for you. Tell me a little bit about that going forward. It sounds like you are in growth mode and scale up mode and raise more money.
Yeah, well, that's always the story of a startup, right? You're always on
Yeah.
to the next phase, and I guess I'd probably say the same thing about each phase at this time. This is the next exciting moment in the company's growth. So yes, we're working on scaling the company because the interest to partner as well as our own goals for our own internal development. They require external growth to help us to propel forward. Of course, we're cognizant of the current market landscape as well, which is just has a bit of uncertainty to it. So we're heading into this being hopeful for the best, but preparing for the possible worst, I suppose. And fortunately, because of our collaborations with biopharma, we are kind of lucky in the sense that I guess as a company we'll likely never go under because we always have that option to gain revenue. But that's not really our goal as a company. We want to explode. We want to scale. So of course we have to raise external funding to be able to do so. So this is where we are.
And on the podcast here, we talked to a lot of different people in that space, and I know now it can be a little bit more difficult potentially than it was in the past. What are you seeing out there in the market when it comes to talking to investors and venture type companies?
It's interesting. It depends who you talk to.
Mm.
Some folks are I would say actually most folks have said that they have not really changed the way that they're doing their investment. It might take a little bit longer to go through the due diligence process. And I think the most common thing that we have heard, as well as from other folks that are in fundraising mode, is that valuations may be impacted. But compared to, I would say, a couple quarters ago, it sounds like funding rounds are going back up. I think it was really quarter two where things slowed down quite a bit, and the investors as well as startup companies were kind of in this wait and see mode. See what
Yeah.
happens, but there's money out there. The VC firms, they have raised very successfully, and they just have cash sitting there. So they have pressure to put that money somewhere. So we're hopeful because of that fact that there is money out there, and it's not getting deployed as much as it was earlier, and or last year rather, and it's got to go somewhere.
Right,
And
right. No,
uh,
I hear the same things. And again, on the discussions we've had on the podcast, where there's plenty of money out there, right? There's
mhm,
a bunch of cash on the shelf, and sometimes it's just these days maybe a little more selective about where it
mhm.
goes, which is probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's always going to be challenges in every scenario that we find ourselves in. So we're just going to go for it and see how the story resonates and do what we always do as startups, which is continue to listen to what the market and investors are telling us, and make sure to take that feedback as we keep going.
How many people do you have now? And if in your scale up mode, what are you projecting?
I would say completely in total, including the part-time folks that we have, we're about 20 people. And if we are successful with this next larger raise, we plan to double within the next year and a half. Of course, we're cognizant of what it means to kind of scale a company like this. One of our goals really isn't to scale the company just through people efforts alone. because that's not really a sustainable way to kind of increase your throughput and how you can generate data for us. So we actually have efforts on going to fully automate our technology platform
Mm.
that will also exponentiate the effort that comes through from the actual people who are helping to drive that forward. So we kind of go at it from two angles in terms of growth and throughput for us.
Well, so you've been out here in San Diego now, let's see, what, 4 or 5 years or so, and as a startup company, and now you're on panels, you're on podcasts, uh, you're giving back to the life science community here. What does that feel like?
I love it. Hey, like I said earlier, I did not get here alone, and we have a lot of more growth ahead of us. And so we've only gotten to this place because of the folks who gave back, who gave their time, who mentored us. So I'm I'm always excited to be able to have the opportunity to do the same, especially I would say for folks who are let's say in grad school and are thinking about this, but they don't really know how to go about it. They're not maybe even encouraged to do it, and that resonates a lot with me. So I really enjoy being able to speak with those folks, and I always try to give my time to those folks when it's asked because others did that for me, and it would be selfish of me not to do the same.
It's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Jerome, thanks so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it, and best of luck here coming up as things grow. And look forward to talking again soon.
That sounds great, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And I'll see you hopefully soon as well, since we're both in San Diego.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Good to see you. Thank you.